Hey guys, welcome to Coptic Topic.
I'm Maurice,
And I'm Maria.
and today we're here with...
Yusuf.
Father Gabriel.
George Bassilios.
And today's episode is Science Said What?
So basically today we're going to be talking about the differences between science and religion, and do they coincide or do they contradict each other?
So first, what is the purpose of science versus faith?
I think a lot of people use science versus faith as an escape from faith. A lot of people, they have, a deep down self-conscious, feeling that if they can explain something in science, then the faith and the fear behind the faith somehow goes away. I don't believe that's completely true. I believe that it's sort of an escape tactic that some people use, that some atheists use. And I don't think truly deep down in their hearts that they believe that, the science is everything and that there's truly nothing after, you pass away. Because a lot of people, they're afraid of dying. So they're afraid, they try to make meaning. And so they like feast on that feeling from other people of fear of dying, and then they try to use that tactic a lot. But they also use that tactic for themselves to support their arguments on how science completely contradicts religion, and in that case.
I 100% agree.
Abuna, Dr. George, do y'all have anything to add on that?
For me, I'm sure that science prove our faith, and science is very good servant to prove our faith and to preach with our faith too.
Dr. George?
Yeah. Sorry, it's Abuna. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. I said that science prove that our faith is right. So we can use science to prove our faith. There is no complication between faith and science in a regular basis ways.
Yeah. I think to accurately also answer this question, we have to define what science is and what faith is. And based on the definition, you'll know if there's a contradiction or if there's an alignment. Science deals with three things: that which is in the natural order in the universe, that which can be observed by the five senses, and that which can be measured. So these are the three basically assumptions of the realm of science. So with this definition, you know that science has limitations. If it cannot deal with anything that is beyond this universe, anything that is beyond nature. So science cannot deal with what is supernatural. Science cannot deal with anything that is not measured or measurable. And science cannot deal with anything that's moral or anything that's ethical or non-ethical. So an accurate definition of what science deals with will give you an accurate explanation as to whether they contradict, they meaning science and faith, or complement one another.
I saw this one quote. It was like science and faith, they don't have to contradict each other, but sometimes they answer different questions. Would you agree with that? Because like faith kind of tells us why, while science like shows how.
Right, 100%. I do agree with you because they measure different realms. Science, like as I said, deals with what can be measured, observed within the cosmos, within nature, within the world we live in. Faith deals with a completely different realm. So you seems like I just got cut out. Right? Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Faith, on the other hand, deals with that which is supernatural, that which is metaphysical. So you measure two different things. You measure. It's as if you're dealing with biology and astrology, or one you use a microscope for, or and one you use a telescope for. So it's astronomy, I mean to say, not astrology. I'm sorry. So one you use a telescope for, one you use a microscope for. It's two different things, two different measurements, two different realms.
I agree with Dr. George. I believe that the statement that science contradicts the Bible is very, very incorrect and utterly wrong, in my opinion, as science is the description of a process, how an organism functions, how it grows, and such. And there is no description of process stated in the Bible. So the argument that science contradicts the Bible is just completely not true.
I agree also with Dr. George, and thank you very much for everything you said. And also wanted to prove that the science have his own way to prove our faith, but our faith is proved, especially in the apologetics schools, that it's 100% truth. And day by day, with the new researches happen that prove our faith is right.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, there are questions that science can answer, and there are questions that science cannot deal with. For example, science will be able to tell you the when, the what, the where, the how many, but science will never be able to address more important existential questions like, why am I here? Is this the right thing to do? Um, what is the purpose of my life? Does God exist? So there are questions that science cannot touch. And it seems that these questions are the more significant questions that deal with our existence, more existential questions that humans wrestle with.
I feel as if a lot of people have this prerogative that they need solid evidence to prove that God exists. Now, um, what is the evidence? Order and design point to an intelligent mind. You can't get order and design by chance and how it's explained in evolution. All these things that have to fall into place in that evolution isn't something that happens by chance. There's an order and there's a design, and there cannot be an order and a design without an intelligent mind behind that.
Okay, I want to get into the three main topics that we're going to talk about today. So the first one is the Big Bang Theory. How does that coincide with our faith, if it does at all? And like, what's our belief on that? What's our stance?
I mean, I know a lot of theories that people are like, oh, like some people say that the Big Bang and the Bible like works together and that God caused the Big Bang. I don't. That's not my personal like opinion on it. I've just heard that that people made that theory. So I don't know if that's like a common one, but anyone disagree?
I would put it in a more biblical sense. The universe is not eternal. The universe has a beginning, and everything that has a beginning, I believe, has a cause, and that cause cannot be reached by simply, survival of the fittest or natural selection that puts all these orders into place. There can't be such chance than such, Big Bang theory, evolution theory, to where all this order and design for it to just randomly happen. That's not something that's true at all, in my opinion.
So you don't believe like it could coincide with like the creation in Genesis?
It can coincide with the creation, but I disagree with the fact that you know we were just some particles that exploded one time, and boom, we're here. That's not something that makes a lot of sense. And no matter how much science backs this, science can sometimes go hand in hand with faith and religion, but it doesn't go with the fact that all these things that happen by chance are just by chance, and as it is, there has to be something behind all this.
I agree.
Abuna, what do you think?
I must get back to the Bible because I'm a Buna. So I have my I have my biblical roots that God created heaven and earth. So we must get back to the Genesis chapter and trying to find the way that God create heaven and earth. For me, I'm very interested in that how God do that, but I believe that God create everything.
Yeah, if I may add that I personally don't see any problems with the Big Bang, and I'll tell you why. Back to what I said earlier about science. Well, we better define what we mean by the Big Bang. Is this something that happened that excludes an agent of creation? Then I disagree with it, obviously, as you all said. But does the Big Bang includes an agent that caused everything to happen? Then I don't see any contradiction. Simply because, so back again to the definition. People who use the Big Bang theory as a replacement for a creator, obviously we don't agree with them. But from a scientific perspective, the Big Bang stands on three assumptions. The universe existed, the universe is expanding, the universe will run down, and we'll get into a status of entropy. Now, those three assumptions do not contradict the creation account in Genesis and scriptures. But what we want to add is that there is an agent with a capital A, that is, a being who caused everything to happen. How did he do that? Could he have used this, singularity and the Big Bang and all of that? The Bible didn't specify how he created the universe out of nothing, but there's no contradiction as long as there is an agent, a God, a being, a transcendent being who is behind it all. And there are several verses from the scriptures that speak to these three assumptions. The universe began to exist. The universe is expanding. In Isaiah, you'll see those verses, and the universe will come to an end.
Okay, so what is the timeline like on the Big Bang compared to like the timeline in the Bible? Like, is everything, you know how in the Bible it says everything was created in 7 days? What's the timeline for the Big Bang?
I'd like to hear from the rest of you. I don't want to.
What do y'all think?
I believe, in some sense, what you have said could lead into the anthropic principle. Now, the anthropic principle entails that there are so many ingredients that go into allowing this earth to sustain life that it's not an accident. There's got to be an intelligent mind. Now, if the earth was a little bit closer to the sun, we would all fry. If the earth was a little bit farther from the sun, we would all freeze. That's not something that I believe you get by chance. That's something, like you said, an agent behind all that, transcendent being, as we like to call God, behind all this. And so that just works hand in hand on how sometimes science can prove religion to an extent.
Anyone else?
No, I agree with what he was. I've seen that a lot too, and I'm just like that just shows how
Perfect.
literally
Yeah.
like everything is not, it can't be by chance, or else like that chance is absolutely perfect. Everything worked out like that. But like back to your question about the 7 days, I know you had mentioned it earlier. I don't know. Like I've seen a lot of people say like, oh, maybe 7 days and God days, which I don't really know what that means. And then others were like, no, they mean 7 literal days. And I just don't know like where we should stand on that. Like, do we stand in 7 days God created the earth, or are we taking it from like the other perspective that maybe it's not 7 literal days? Like I don't know where to go about that. But the Big Bang, I have no idea how long that took.
Well,
Sorry, go ahead.
sorry, let me interrupt again.
You're good.
I can't see you, so I jump in without letting you finish. Forgive me. So there are two schools of thought when it comes to the age of the universe. There's what's called young Earth creationism and old Earth creationism. Okay. And the two different schools, just to be objective and explain, some believe in the literal 7 days of creation, 24-hour days. That's young Earth creationism school of thought. And others believe in the not literal 7 days. Those days were segments of time, years, millions of years. And these are the old Earth creationism school of thought. Now, this question, we belong to the Coptic Orthodox Church. Now, we need to know, what do our bishops, the Holy Synod of the Coptic Orthodox Church, believe in? Because I'm not going to tell you this is what I think it is. Well, what does the church believe in? So when this subject was presented to several clergy and bishops, including His Holiness Pope Shenouda, they mentioned that we don't believe in the literal 24-hour days, 7 days, or 6 days of creation. And that these days, and there's a lot of evidence and research that has been made. I'll be more than happy to share this with you after this segment, that indicates that these days were not what we know as 24-hour days. That does not contradict what the scientific discoveries on the age of the universe and so on and so forth.
What do you think, Abuna?
Yes, I'm trying to find a solution for that. I need to use that day, even it's not like our 24 hours day like today's, but we will prove that God create everything, and that is a proof that God created. Even it's mentioned in He created with His word in a day. That means that this is a proof He is a creator. We can use it as an evidence, not a conflict.
So like the 7 days shouldn't matter like necessarily if it was the 24 hours or not. It's just the fact that God created the world that's most
Yes.
important.
Yes.
Okay.
So wait, so are we going towards the idea that God used the Big Bang to create, what's it called? To create us, basically, or Earth? Is that what we're going towards right now?
Don't think that was like the
That's not what I was saying. That's not what I was saying, because that would be something that would be similar to what's called theistic evolution, and that is not what we believe in. But what I'm saying is that there is no contradiction between the Big Bang as long as there's an agent, transcendent being of creation. That's what I'm saying.
so like essentially we don't necessarily know all of the facts, but it could align. But that doesn't mean we believe in that specifically. We just believe that overall God created the world.
Exactly. So there's a correlation, not a causation in this case.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. George.
And I think you had brought this up earlier about the like the old Earth versus the new Earth. Could you like? Sorry.
Young Earth.
Oh, sorry. Young Earth. Could you talk a little bit more about that and what you meant by that?
Well, as I said, the young Earth creationism school of thought says that the Earth is 6,000 years old. The days of creation were 24-hour days, and there's a lot of debate between these two worldviews. But our church, as I said, leans towards the old Earth creationism model. So and as I said, there's plenty of evidence for the old Earth creationism model. I'd be more than happy, as I said, to share some of this with you. Let me share with you also some research I've done on these two different models. Several of our church fathers, I can tell you who they are, believed in the old Earth creationism model, and then 4 church fathers believed in the young Earth creationism model. And there was this basically a split between this opinion and that opinion. But I would like to basically tell you that this is what the church believes in currently is what I would like to convey to you. I don't want to just tell you this is what I think, this is my opinion, this is my preference. I would like to convey to you what the church believes in and why.
Do you think that this is a question for you too, Abuna? Do you think that the fathers who agreed with the old Earth theory rather than the young Earth theory, do you think is that a matter of lack of faith that God cannot do it in 7 days, that He cannot actually create whole Earth, life, and all this in 7 days? Because I mean, well, what are we if we do not have faith in that? I believe it to be true if it's something that is like it can be misinterpreted, sure, and interpreted differently. But is it a lack of faith if you do not believe that the Earth was actually like created in 7 days? Now, obviously, it doesn't have to be 24-hour days. I guess the whole point was like saying that it was created in a week, in a sense. If you know, like, if you're picking up what I'm trying to put down here, you know.
That was a question for me.
Yeah, you
Yes.
or Abuna.
Okay. Well, I don't think it's lack of faith. I dare not say that they had lack of faith in what God can do, but I think, and I'm quoting here something that based on some research, is that they didn't have access to modern science. I would say lack of knowledge of modern science than lack of faith. And the father really understood that the message of creation is far more important than the technical details of the creation. So as Abuna said earlier, and I agree with him, is that as long as we know that there is a God who created this universe, then everything will fall in place. One philosopher once said, as long as you believe in the very first verse of the scriptures, in the beginning, God created. If you believe that, then everything else is just, peripheral, secondary. Whether he created in 7 days or 7 billion years, as long as there is a God who creates, that is the essence. That's the important, question that we need to debate. But those who want to create noise around the Big Bang, intelligent designs, days of creation, old Earth, young Earth, it's just noise around what's essential. God exists. He created.
Yeah, I completely understand that, and I appreciate the breakdown of that. That it's actually, it clears up, like, I guess, my thought process about it, because if church fathers disagree with one another, on a certain concept, you gotta, have some questions of your own. I want to go back to, like, a lot of evidence. People nowadays, they require a lot of evidence for everything, and they try to tie. Some people try to tie science into it. They try to tie some sort of philosophy. Now, Charles Darwin pointed out that such things that are irreducibly complex, contradict the whole idea of evolution by chance. Like, more than enough examples of this, like, of these things that have appeared to be complex, of these irreducibly complex things, have appeared in the world, such as our own DNA. Like, our own DNA contains, like, 1 gram of DNA contains 215 million gigabytes of information. Now, I don't know if you know how much that is. That's enough to contain all the world information just in one cell, and which is ridiculously and irreducibly complex, that it has to point to an intelligent mind. And people who keep urging for evidence, the evidence is they are the evidence. It's just look at yourself. Look at your behavior. That such thing isn't something accomplished by as I said, natural selection, survival of the fittest. Us adapting to our environment. Yes, that takes part into it, but there's so much things like that go deeper into this. And a lot of things, have to be put in order for something to function. You could have, for example, a mousetrap, right? You could have just a plank of wood and the hammer, right? Is the mousetrap still gonna work? No. You need the mousetrap, the spring, then the hammer. They all completely coexist for a reason. There's an order, and if you try to skip that order, you tend to run into a lot of problems with your beliefs.
All said. I agree with you 100%.
Thank you.
I haven't heard that analogy. That I really like that point.
Yeah.
Do y'all have any more questions about evolution? Or not evolution, Big Bang Theory? I just spoiled what we're going into next, but
It's okay. I think it ties in perfectly too, because he was just talking about essentially like micro evolution versus macro.
So I get a lot of questions from youth and servants alike. Do we believe in evolution? It's the $1 million question. Do we believe in evolution? So again, back to what I said earlier. Define our terms. What do you mean by evolution? I say yes, we do believe in evolution, as long as it is testable, repeatable, observable, and falsifiable. Then we believe in evolution. But that's not Darwinian evolution. And then you have to you have to explain what you mean by Darwinian evolution versus microevolution and so on and so forth. One thing I wanted just to mention, and that will summarize this whole evolution creationism debate. Evolution will answer two questions. Creationism, or Genesis, I should say, will answer two more important questions. So evolution will tell you the what and the how. What is happening? How is it happening? Basically the survival of the fittest and the adaptation and so on and so forth. Now, there are two other questions evolution cannot address, but only creationism, Genesis more specifically, can address. What are these two questions? Who and why? Now, evolution has no answer whatsoever to who did all this. If you read the book, The Origin of Species by Darwin, he will tell you, I can tell you how species evolved. How did they arrive to exist? He has no clue. He even said that. Why do we have species to begin with? He doesn't know. So the who and the why are answered in the scriptures. The what and the how are answered in evolution. I'd much rather know the answers to the who and the why than the what and the how. I hope I didn't confuse.
No, that made
No,
sense.
that
That
makes
made
sense.
sense.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I know you mentioned something about microevolution. Do we believe more in microevolution, would you say? Or do we not believe in macroevolution at all?
Microevolution is a scientifically proving phenomena. You cannot say you don't believe in it. That's evolution within the same type, within the same species. That's has nothing to do with the origin of the universe or the creator of the universe. What we don't believe in is macroevolution, the larger scale evolution across types. That we evolved from different species and other and we have common ancestors, and we don't believe in that, simply because, as I said earlier, I believe in evolution as long as it's testable, as long as it's repeatable, observable, and falsifiable. These are the four conditions for me to say I do believe in evolution. Macroevolution is neither one of these. Microevolution is all of these.
So I know I learned in one of like the youth meetings that we do believe in micro, because essentially what you were saying that nobody can not believe in it, and macro is like basically coming from the Big Bang, where we started from or not the Big Bang, I don't want to say that, like we started from something, like I forgot what it was. I think it was like a mitochondria. Don't take my word for that. But like we evolved from that. That's what macro evolution is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We all came from what macroevolutionists call primordial soup, and some protein and DNA and bacteria and other things as well. But then where's God in this whole story? Of course, he doesn't exist if you believe in macroevolution, but that's not what we believe in.
Okay. Perfect.
Abuna, do you have anything to add on that?
No, that's okay. I must get back to the Bible too.
So I know like that the Bible teaches us that humans are made in God's image, and each of us have a unique soul. So that does also tie in. If we believed in macroevolution, there would be absolutely no way that we also believe that we're each individually made. Because I feel like when I think about it personally, if I'm thinking I came from like essentially like nothing and I became something, like resorting to the macro evolution, I don't think that I'm special in a way. But knowing that God created me and he like knew me and he created me like the way he wanted me to be made, it's like I'm my own person and I came here with a purpose. And I feel like that's like a big thing in Christianity, where we all have a purpose.
That's
in
a
our life.
really good point.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. A good one.
I want to kind of reflect on that a little bit, and how God created us all uniquely. He created us all. We all have different souls and different ideals, but there are some things that are called moral absolutes. Some things that morally we can all agree on, and that thing morally is just it's a subconscious thing. So for example, a moral absolute. The death of innocent children, right? That's a moral absolute. We can all disagree or we can all agree that that's something that shouldn't happen whatsoever. That's pretty much a moral absolute. The only way for this is if there was a God, if there was a God and a loving God to instill that subconscious moral tendency inside of us. Now, I don't know what others believe, but I don't think it's possible that primordial soup or a clump of cells can project these kinds of emotions and reflect on situations such as this.
Who, if I can't see them. Who just spoke? Was that Justin?
This is Yusuf.
Now I can see you. I'm sorry. Forget. I can't. So who are you again?
Yusuf.
Yusuf. Okay. I just wanted to say I love what you said, Yusuf.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was gonna ask a question. Do y'all think God is involved in the evolution process?
Yes.
Okay.
I think he's
How?
involved in everything regardless.
Mhm.
But
So I was like, is it entirely random? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like the evolution process.
well, essentially I also don't believe in coincidences, so I guess I would have to say no.
I agree.
Like I feel like everything plays out perfectly. So I don't think there's any type of randomization in anything evolution related or not. And
I
you just-
sort of have kind of like a take on this. It might sound, a little bit superficial, but I believe that God tests us in our own ways, in our own lives, in every single person who came before us. God has tested them in a way. And I believe that he has control over our own evolution rather than, evolution as a whole. So the evolution of a human being, of their thoughts, their emotions, their actions, he puts us through certain tests that, determine the scale of like how far we're willing to go, how we reflect on certain things and what we learn from those certain things and how we go on about those certain things and like move on, learn from them, for example, or, not do them in the near future. So every single person has been affected by, the compassion of Christ that they've evolved through Christ. Christ has given them the opportunity to evolve as a person, and that's passed down as generations go, right? And now there's still more learning to do, obviously, but I believe that it all starts just from the word, and once it starts from the word, it's just going to travel down tremendously and indefinitely.
I didn't even think of it like that. The way like we essentially evolve in our faith. Like, wow. Like sometimes when I think of micro, I literally think of what's happening in front of me. But off of what you were saying, like I have heard of like the families like passing on and like breaking off habits that like, their past generations have been doing.
And I think also for the question which Maurice asked about, that is another proof that God is existing. Because when you said, does God involved with evolution or no? That means God is here, God is existing. But our question about the authority, does he participate or do something in that or no? Does he know anything about that or no? That means God is here and we believe and be sure that is here.
I think we should move on to some questions that we might have. That
Do you have?
I have a few. I have a few.
He's well
they're
prepared
not
for this
few.
episode.
It's just they're long, but this is to Abuna and Dr. George. Both of you guys can input on this.
I'm sorry for interrupt. I like to learn from Dr. George because I really appreciate his teaching and his books too, and I'm very proud of him. Thank you, Dr. George. In a sense.
Shameless
Thank you,
plug.
Dr. George. Thank you.
Fine, Abuna. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. George. Thank you.
Now, there are certain relics and certain, artifacts that can be carbon dated to, biblical text time, and one of those major ones, is the crown of thorns at Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame, I believe so, claims that the crown of thorns was the original crown of thorns that belonged to Jesus Christ himself, as their carbon dating process has proved it to be dated at that time when Jesus was crucified. Now, do you believe that this such thing can be true and that it can sustain that, large of a time, or is that preserved, or is it some form of, just hoax, in my opinion?
I have an input on that. I think with stuff like that, do y'all know the what is it? The saints, like, I think it's like the little red things we have in the church.
Yeah,
For the
they're it's like remains.
Yes,
Yeah.
the
They're
saints.
remains.
Remains,
Yes.
yeah.
I think with stuff like that, it kind of has to be preserved, not because like of any rule, just because if God wanted it to be preserved, it would be, and because that stuff is so holy that it like kind of makes it through. I don't know. I think that's just my opinion. But
And yet again, if such thing as, the crown of thorns is, that if that is the real crown of thorns, and, it essentially exists in that case, how can some people, deny the existence of Christ in general,
I mean, I think this kind of goes along the lines of, when like, have you seen those videos of when there's like a fire and everything is burnt up except for the Bible?
Yeah.
I think that's like kind of the same idea. I think it's just like the holiness of the object.
Maybe it's a supernatural, effect, or, case, but that's what happens a lot, because Notre Dame had a fire a few years back, and the crown of thorns, was in that sector where the fire happened, and it was one of the artifacts that was preserved and survived.
I didn't know that. But
Do you think there's any science behind it?
I can't say. I don't have much input on it, because I haven't seen the thing for myself. I'm not a an artifact specialist. I cannot carbon date it myself. If I were to carbon date it myself, I believe it's the actual crown of thorns. But for now, it's just based on word of mouth. So I find it hard to imply my faith in such cases when it's something so far away, just a word of mouth. I've seen it online. Because there's a lot of artifacts that are misrepresented, or are just in like taken out of proportion completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everyone, and what has been said. I just would like to, and what goes with for the Shroud of Turin, the crown of thorns, the light on Bright Saturday, and the Church of the Resurrection, and several others. I just would caution that my faith and your faith should not depend on these things, okay, in general. It's very dangerous, because your faith and mine is based on evidence, irrefutable evidence that God does exist, that God does intervene in his creation, that the Lord Jesus Christ existed in the flesh, that he was crucified, he was, he rose from the dead, he resurrected, and so on and so forth. And I do have evidence for that outside the scriptures. So even if you don't believe in the scriptures, that's fine. I have ample evidence from historians that that this was in fact the truth. So and that's if you're talking to an unbeliever. If you're talking to a believer, my faith doesn't depend on whether the light on Bright Saturday came on or came out, or did not come on, or my faith depends on a personal relationship that I have with the Lord Jesus Christ. So evidence is just gravy. That's great. They can talk to someone who's an atheist and provide evidence, and then ask them if they are evidentialists, if they follow the evidence where it leads. And if that's the case, we have ample evidence that God exists. So it's just, I wouldn't follow, or I wouldn't depend so much on apparitions, on oil. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, or oil that's dripping from an icon. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Of course it does, and it's great and it's wonderful. But my faith doesn't depend on that alone.
Yeah. And I completely agree with your point of view on that. And also another topic I wanted to bring up, supernatural versus, scientifically explained. We have a lot of miracles that happen in our faith, and a lot of, um, showcases of great supernatural power. For example, at the Zaytun church in Egypt, Saint Mary appeared on top of the church, and it was like a glowing, almost light in the shape of like a Saint Mary icon. Supposedly, is how was it was explained to me. Now, how does science combat these supernatural appearings and all this like in a scientist perspective, how would they explain that, and how would they take that?
There's no contradiction whatsoever between science and miracles, and I'll tell you why. If you say science explains everything in this natural order in this universe, then you need to have science explain reason, morality, consciousness, and so on and so forth. There are things in this universe that are supernatural, metaphysical, beyond the realm of science. Back to what I said earlier, science deals with that's what's measurable, what's within or observable with our senses, and with the natural universe, or the natural order, I should say. So how can science explain, for example, that a mother loves her child? Science can explain the effect of love, the manifestation of love, but the essence of love cannot be explained, nor can it be quantified.
Yeah.
How can science explain consciousness, morality, reason? So miracles are exceptions by the creator who created this universe, and the laws of physics and the laws of nature of this universe. He simply intervened in his creation with exceptions for a specific reason, and it always ends up being for his glory.
Well said.
Yes, yes. Also, I wanted to add, as Dr. George and Joseph said, that the miracle is an exceptional event. If it's happened or not, we must have a faith on the stone of Jesus Christ Himself. So we must believe 100%. Even there is no exceptional event with the miracles. But for the evidences like historical or material evidence like Shroud of Turin, in Egypt we have stations for the Holy Family in Egypt with a lot of evidences historically for the existence of Jesus Christ himself, and also in Jerusalem for his crucifixion, for his cross. But for miracles, it's overnatural or supernatural. It could happen or no. This must not affect our faith, because if we build our faith on the exceptional, I think we will face a lot of problems, because we will wait for another exceptionals. And this is not our faith.
I agree with Abuna 100%. And also we must ask ourselves: is evidence all we need? Because some people say, just show me some evidence, and I'll believe in God. But I don't think evidence is all you need. And it's very obvious when in the scriptures, John chapter 11, I believe, the miracle of Lazarus. Here's the greatest evidence. A group of people who attended this miracle believed in Christ and what he could do. Another group saw the exact same evidence. That's compelling evidence. And what did they say? You know what the Pharisees did after that? They wanted to plot to kill him. So evidence is not all you need. You need humility in heart, faith in heart, and that faith in your heart and in your mind will help you take the evidence and then come to the knowledge of the Lord Jesus Christ.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you for joining us today.
Of course, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you to
very
the-
much. Appreciate it.
Sorry, everyone.
Us, and this is a wonderful forum, and may God continue to bless your work for his glory. Thanks again, and thank you, Abuna, for blessing us with your presence.
Thank you, Dr. George, for everything you do. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to all the youth who sent in questions. We are on all social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify.
We are CTP. Have a blessed day.
Thank you.